Hi, friends. Welcome to another Simple Steps for the Whole You podcast, where Lisa and I are really excited to talk more about decluttering. This is part 2. Last week was part 1, really practical stuff. Go back and listen. But this week we look at cleaning up our spirits, minds, and our schedules. So here are some symptoms that might be present if your spirit, mind, or schedule needs some decluttering and cleanup. So this would be a little warning signals. Your breathing is shallow. You never seem to be able to get anywhere on time. You forget things easily. You use your vacations, weekends, or holidays to catch up. Friends or family members complain that you don't have time for them. It's a big one. You no longer have the energy to do the things you love to do because they just feel like one more item on your to-do list. You feel scattered or unable to concentrate. You regularly make mistakes, lose things, and waste money because you are in a hurry. So this list comes from Valorie Burton's book. You can get it in our featured products, one of the books we love. It's called How Did I Get So Busy? So this might be reminiscent too of our Rushing Woman series. And so we'll reference to that in the show notes. But we need to say these things over and over because like this list says, we don't remember things, we don't absorb. So we need repetitive reminders of these things. But in essence, our minds do want balance, right? And our spirits want peace, that idea of shalom and wholeness. But at the core, you desire to live your life in alignment with who you were created to be and your divine purpose, right? But how do we do this?
Yeah, I was just thinking about how we were talking this morning about how it is repetitive in some ways to the rushing woman syndrome, but because our world is so counter to all of this,
Yeah.
we need to come back and, we feel thankful that we get to have this space to learn ourselves and relearn ourselves, and also to share with you all the listeners and viewers that this different way, a counter way of living, right? And we need to come back to this over and over again in different ways, different words, different contexts. And so
Yeah.
we're providing another opportunity, everybody. But you also can go back and listen to the Rushing Women Syndrome and hear another, more thorough, maybe little more thorough take on it. So
And we're
yeah,
learning with you, right? Yeah, we're
yeah,
learning with
totally.
you. We're reminding ourselves as we remind you.
Exactly, exactly. So Michelle brought up, but how? How do we live this way? So in today's episode, our goal is to shed light on the spirit, mind, and schedule, the 3 areas of your life that can become just very cluttered. Like last week, we talked about getting rid of space or getting rid of stuff and making space.
Mhm. Mhm.
But this is another kind of like getting rid of, creating space kind of an idea. So I have this verse, Isaiah 26:3, on my wall. I have I think it might be the NLT version, but this is the amplified version I'm going to share with you. It says, "You will guard him and keep him in perfect peace." Or I'm sorry, I'm so used to my version. I'm going to start over again. "You will guard him and keep him in perfect and constant peace, whose mind, both its inclination and its character, is stayed on you, because he commits himself to you, leans on you, and hopes confidently in you." And that was Isaiah 26, verse 3 in the Amplified Version. So you could even take that question of, but how? And look at that verse and really analyze it and meditate on it and go, okay, that's how. That is how right there.
Yeah.
But a life that is too cluttered, crowded, and complicated will lack in clarity and calm.
Yeah.
So the problem, what leads to this state of clutter in our spirit, in our mind, and in our schedule? What leads to that? We're gonna break it down and share some ideas under all 3 of those areas: the spirit, mind, and the schedule. So first, the spirit. So how do our spirits get so cluttered? And by spirit, we're kind of talking about the part of us that wonders about God and relates to God. So think about that when you're thinking about our spirit. Well, I see part of that, part of the way that we get our spirit cluttered up is by believing lies, by not identifying that it is a lie that is coming into our mind. Someone might be saying it, no one might be saying it. It just may be
Mhm.
some old garbage that's in there that's coming up and it's cluttering up our spirit. And then we latch hold of that rather than taking it captive and bringing it to God and letting Him transform it. Worries and things of this world just bog down our spirit. I mean, we could probably talk the rest of the time just about that. You know,
Yes.
all of the, I last night I walked into the room and I said to my husband, "Do you have the news on? What's going on?" Like the news was on for about 1 minute, and it was like so jarring to our household. I felt like because that is, that's a worry and a thing of this world that bogs down the spirit. If you ask me, anyway. I know some
Yes.
people love the news, but it can really clutter up your spirit. Not actually having any time with God, and maybe even along with that, not having, like, I don't know, I want to say almost like real time, or
Yeah.
vulnerable time with God, like, that time of really seeking Him,
Mhm.
listening to Him, and that really will just deplete your spirit of not having that regular time with God.
Mhm.
Do you want to add anything on that, Michelle?
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of a good analogy. Like, when you really long to like have some time with a friend, but all you
Yeah.
get is a moment in a grocery store.
Yeah. Oh, that's a
And
good
but
one.
you
Yeah.
both have to get in line, you both have to go your way, but your soul's like,
Mm.
that was okay. Like I saw her for a second, but I didn't really get to connect with her and I want
Yeah.
more. So maybe
Yeah.
it's like that.
Oh, that's
We
a really good one.
we can kind of like see God for a moment, read his word, and then on with your day, or we can really like connect and be with
Yeah.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes you're in a season where you're having those little check-ins, but like to
Mhm.
rely on that to really keep your spirit decluttered is
Yeah.
not gonna last.
Yeah. It's not
Yeah.
satiating, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the next category, that was our spirit, which,
Hmm.
can be a hard one to talk about. Let's talk about our minds. And so right back at the news, we're on
Yeah,
to the news
exactly.
again.
Hmm.
So our minds get cluttered with things like news, um, social media, like we all know that. Phone
Yeah.
notifications. Like I
Mm.
don't think we fully realize again in a couple of books I have, but in that book, How Did I Get So Busy? She talks too about that effect that just that little notification ding on your phone has the
Hmm.
power to so distract you or clutter your mind that it can just take you
Mm.
right out of whatever you are working on. Just
Yeah.
this little ding, and the phone is dinging all day long, depending how you have control over that. By the way, how you set your notifications and where you
Yeah.
put your
Yeah.
phone, and
Yes.
just in essence, too much information. I know we don't have to say a lot about how our minds get cluttered because already you're feeling it, right? I feel it.
Hmm.
We don't
Hmm.
have enough silence and stillness. And I'll
Hmm.
talk about that one in a minute. That has an effect on our minds.
Yeah.
Even working and living, I think this we just take for granted, but if we're working or living in a stressful, noisy, unstable environment, our minds suffer. I mean, for me, there was a
Yeah.
big change from when I moved off of a very busy street in one
Mm.
town to a farming community, a very quiet cul-de-sac sort of neighborhood. There's a huge difference in my mind.
Mhm.
And it's just, I mean, not everyone can move. I realize that. But I'm just saying it affects us more than we realize.
Yeah.
And then there's, as we talked about in The Rushing Woman, there's that adrenaline addiction. Like, oh, we got to live on the edge. Let's move to the next thing. And some of us are wired like that. Like we work well like that. I think I'm
Yeah.
like that. But over time, my mind becomes so full that I can't even think clearly, like what to make for dinner or what was I going to get in this closet? I don't know because my mind is cluttered.
Yeah.
um, Another area where our minds get cluttered is no boundaries around our work. So we take our work home, we work long hours, and we let play and sleep be secondary and go by the wayside. We prioritize work. to the point of hurting our health and including our minds. Like if we can't stop working, we can't shut our minds off from work, our minds will become too cluttered, which,
Yeah.
leads to the last one, which is pure lack of sleep. It really
Hmm.
does affect our minds
Hmm.
as well as our spirits and bodies. They're all connected. They're all connected. Yeah.
They're all connected, and like your lack of sleep may be
Yeah.
happening because your mind is so cluttered, and then your lack of sleep is causing your
Yeah.
mind to be cluttered.
Oh,
That
so
cycle.
true. Oh, so
Yeah, yeah,
true. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So how do our schedules get cluttered? We talked about spirit. Michelle talked about mind. Now I'm going to talk about schedule. How do our schedules get cluttered? And I would guess things are already coming to your mind, listeners and viewers. But saying yes, we also talked about this in our rushing woman syndrome, the people pleasing. So you say yes, thinking you're pleasing others, but really no one wins. Saying yes too often leads to a no to something that may be more important. I want to come back to that idea of no one winning. You may think that the person you're saying yes to is winning, but they're not getting, like, I think that Lisa TerKeurst's book, that your best yes, they're not getting
Mhm.
your best yes. They're getting your like forced yes. Like you feel
Yeah.
like you have to say yes to please them, and they're not getting a genuine yes. So they're not winning. You're
Mm.
not winning. It's cluttering up your schedule. um, Overcommitment. Refuse to over obligate yourself. So just overcommitting, again, that saying yes,
Mhm.
saying yes. Look at your schedule before you. I guess we're not getting into the solution yet. I just can't help
Yeah.
myself. I
I
want to say, like, look at your schedule before you say yes. But well, I'll rein it in.
No, give us the tip.
um,
Come on.
yeah, right. Yeah, let's get to the good stuff. This is overwhelming me already.
Yeah.
But lack of boundaries, very similar, I think. But your values can determine your boundaries. So I love to work with my health coaching clients and groups on really determining their core values and letting their yes that they say be what matches on
Yeah.
what is on the inside. And boy, that can really help you refine your schedule. And
It's a game
um,
changer. Yep.
it really is, yeah. Equating busy with our significance, wearing busy as a badge of honor.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. Like Michelle and I have touched on that quite a bit, it seems like. But again, we all need to hear this over and over again. That, yeah, being, like when somebody asks you what you did that day, and you may feel guilty, may feel bad about yourself, shame even for being, not busy that day, but that's our culture, and that doesn't mean that's what's good for our spirit, mind, and schedule, for sure. Lack of margin. So you might hear that. That was kind of I don't know when that term came to my attention, but it doesn't seem like too long ago where I was kind of like, what would that mean when someone uses it in that context? Because I think of like the margin alongside the paper. I was a
Yeah.
teacher and teaching the kindergartners to find the margin and then start, all of
Yeah.
that. But it is similar. It's, leaving that empty space. But
Mhm.
so margin is an amount available beyond what is actually necessary. It's the time you can use for unexpected situations or to rest and reset. Just to give you some examples of using margin time would be like stretching, taking a minute to stretch. I know we're kind of getting into a little bit of a solution here, but I just wanted to make it a little more tangible. What is margin?
Yeah.
Taking a walk, checking in with a friend, reading, sending a text, being available to help people in need. When you
Mhm.
don't have any margin, it makes it difficult to serve practically or obey when God says to do this right now. If you're
Yeah.
I know I could just think about like walking. I'm going to talk about that. Walking is a big place where I kind of like check in with myself. But when I wasn't, when I was really always rushing, I would feel like I would have no time to talk to the
Mhm.
neighbor who just wants to talk. We have a lot of retired people in our neighborhood, and they've got time on their hands, and they're so sweet and just want to chat for a few minutes. And I would see that as such an inconvenience, but that was really what God was telling me to do right now. He put that person in my path, but when my schedule was so full, I wasn't able to do that. So
Yes,
feels
that's a
good to
good
be able to
example.
do that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, so we get to move on to the solution. I'm thankful for that. I think we all can identify with much of the problem,
Mhm.
but the solution is following Jesus. mic drop, right? Like, there we go.
There we go.
Just do that, you
Podcast
guys.
over.
Just do that.
We're all done.
Like when my husband and I golf, and like he'll hit it right in, not a hole in one, but he'll hit it real close. I'll say, like, you should just do that every time. Just do that every time. Like, that's the answer. Just follow Jesus. So Matthew 11:28 through 30 is a verse that I just absolutely love, or a section of scripture that I just love. Just has a lot of meaning to me. I share about it in my book. I kind of dissect it because God really revealed to me what it meant for me. So Matthew 11:28 through 30 says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Again, I feel like that along with the Isaiah 26:3, you could just take those verses and meditate on those. If this is like really resonating with you, like, this is hitting a nerve with me with all areas, like, just, sit with these words. And I believe you'll find healing, and God will reveal things to you just like he has to us. John Mark Comer, right along these lines of following Jesus, writes, "If you want to experience the life of Jesus, you have to adopt the lifestyle of Jesus."
Mhm. I love the way he says things so simple and yet powerful.
Yeah.
It's a good author or
Hmm.
speaker. In the
Hmm.
in his book, John Mark Comer's book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, he talks about 4 areas to submit to Jesus, and to be able to adopt the lifestyle of Jesus. We're going to look at those 4 today and just see how they might practically apply to this idea of decluttering. And we'll give a few examples as well as how these 4 areas can be applied, how they've applied in our life to decluttering our spirit and our mind and our schedules. So these
Hmm.
4 areas are silence or silence and solitude, Sabbath, simplicity, and slowing. All S's. All
Yeah.
right. So let's start with the silence and solitude. So you might think, how does this apply to, a cluttered mind or a cluttered schedule? Well, whether we admit it or not, we all do have a need for silence and solitude. I I do have my times of, I'll call it somewhat silent and somewhat solitude in the morning.
Hey, it's another S, somewhat. Yeah.
My family is around and there can be noises. There can even be phone calls and devices going. And so I do my
Yeah.
best to stay focused. We have a very small house and you can hear everything that goes on in this house, no matter what room you're in. So while there's only 3 of us here, it's sometimes noisy. When I spoke earlier of the noisy environment, it can be like this low hum in the background that you don't think really affects you. Like, other people probably call my house quiet, especially if you have 5, 6 kids and dogs running around. Some people walk into my house because it's so quiet, but for me, it's not quiet enough all the time. So I finally woke up and said, I think I need a day of silence and solitude. And so I booked this little lake house where I go. And I was only there 5 hours, but it took me a while
Mm.
to actually enter into the silence and the solitude and the kind of another the stillness, because I'm
Mm.
used to
Hmm.
moving. So it took me a minute or 2 or 3
Yeah. Yeah.
the way I thought about it was to actually receive it. So
Hmm.
as soon as I walked in, I was like, wow, it's so quiet in here. Now I need to be able to receive it. Macrina, I'm going to massacre her last name, Whitaker. I was looking at her book when I was in this time. I think it's called Tree Full of Angels. She says, if the solitude is to be life-giving, I must find my way through the labyrinth of my distractions right into the heart of God. So
Mm.
my purpose in having that time, and I have done it before, but I need to do it more often, was to just really run into the heart of God and soak in it and be in it. And that was
Yeah.
about it. And so in order to do that, though, I had to embrace some silence and solitude. But on the flip side, coming in today and even last night, the space that it created, the decluttering in my mind, because I even had a brilliant idea yesterday, didn't I, Lisa? I Marco Polo'd you about it. I'm like, look, words are coming to my brain because it's been cleared and decluttered.
It was amazing. Yes.
It was amazing. And it was the title of an upcoming episode, so stay tuned. But anyway, when I do that clearing process of sitting in the silence, it's amazing how God meets me and how much better I can think afterwards. And my spirit feels just like completely overhauled when I have a day like that. It's just so beautiful. Highly recommend.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
I wanted to share just about some of my morning time. That's my silence and solitude time. Sometimes I get a little bit of that throughout the day, but that's the time I schedule in, like nobody's awake. Sometimes my dog looks at me like, "Are you kidding me? Like, are we really getting up right now?" I think she says that in her mind. Are you kidding me? But I can count on it. The rest of the day, if I get any, it's like, oh, that's a bonus. But so I was just thinking about something that I do. I usually do at the beginning of that time. I look at my day, I look at my calendar, and I make a list on my phone, on my notes, a checklist, because then I get to like check that part off. Like I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing today. I've got that down. Now I'm on to this time with God, and that can look different. There's some things that are the same pretty much every day, but they can look a little bit different. But I used to find that, like, I'm sure if I went somewhere like you did, Michelle, for 5 hours by myself, I would have that time. I would need that time to settle in. But this is so regular for me that I can settle in a little quicker, I think, than I might in a situation like that. But I used to need like an app, like a meditation app. And there's no shame in that at all. Like, because that's, I feel like, what helped me so much, and it kind of coached me. And I would use meditation apps to, like, for a few minutes, 3 to maybe 10 minutes or something, to kind of help get me into that place. But then I started thinking about how I just keep hearing about silence and solitude. What would happen if I just had silence, no instrumental music, nothing, and then it's like I'm more in that place now of, like, I think the meditation apps maybe help train my brain to do this, but now the silence, it like triggers that for me to look for God, listen for God. And so having like true silence, and it's okay if you're not there, if you're not comfortable with silence yet, just practice the solitude, practice instrumental music, you'll get there.
It
Just
does
keep
take
practicing.
practice.
It
All these are
does. Yeah.
practices, by the way. These are practices. They're not things to perfect, and all it takes a long time to get used to these, all of these, really,
Yeah.
to let them become part of our life. So please don't like say 5 hours, what in the world? Like, really, like, just start with your 3 minutes of some silence. Start where you're
Yeah.
at and practice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Practice.
so then
Yeah.
the Sabbath is a very, near to my heart subject, and we have an episode on that, or maybe a couple, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so the Sabbath is this idea of a time that you're carving out regularly. It's best done regularly, every 7 days, the best. But there can be things like mini Sabbaths that you take throughout a day, where you just pull away from technology, you pull away from the world a bit, and you don't necessarily have to do anything fun, but you can. And it just, like, you're turning your gaze towards God. You're leaving the idea that you are God behind for a moment, and the world is still going to spin even if you stop spinning for a few minutes. And so that's the idea behind Sabbath, is letting God be God. And just even if you just sit in a chair and close your eyes for 5 minutes, it's a mini Sabbath. So Sabbath doesn't have to be 24 hours. You can start where you're at. Start small, people. Very small. The Sabbath's been life-giving to me, and I have practiced it for a while, and so it grows as I practice it. And that's a life-giving thing for me. A way to build in margin to my schedule, but also for my spirit, and especially my mind. I think it gives my mind a rest, because I stop work on that during that time.
Yeah. Yeah, and Sabbath doesn't have to be alone. You've taught me that.
No, no.
It doesn't mean you're
Yeah.
alone in
Mhm.
your bed or I don't know,
Yeah, yeah,
you're with people. So
yeah.
as you were talking, I was thinking about how, so my husband and I over the last, like, I can't remember how many months ago, 3 to 6 months ago, something like that, we started doing these alphabet dates, and
Mhm.
where the whole date revolves around one letter. And I think that can kind of
Yeah,
feel like a Sabbath for me, because
yeah.
we're we're not tied to technology. But we're together, and we're doing something fun and
Mhm.
playful. Oftentimes, like, we rode a horse one time. We
And
jumped
you're
on a at a
feasting. You're
well, yeah, we
feasting.
eat. We always, it always involves food,
Yeah.
and good food, and yeah, and fun. And so, and it does feel life-giving. It feels like a little mini vacation. And I've heard people
Mhm.
talk about that as Sabbath, like, feel like a little
Yes.
mini vacation. So
Yeah.
that is the way I think that I'm practicing it. But I also was telling Michelle, I'm still, if you listen to our other Sabbath episodes, one or two, I can't remember how many we've had, I'm still kind of in that place of, like, I don't take a whole day,
Mhm.
or like multiple hours even in a row, but like every day. Well, not every day. I try to most days have some time that
Mhm.
feels really life-giving to me, where I'm not attached to my phone or,
Mhm.
technology or anything. And especially on Sundays, I do try to think about, like, what would be life-giving to me today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. So we've done silence, Sabbath, and now on to simplicity, which a lot of last week's episode I feel like was on simplicity because we talked about decluttering your closets and your physical spaces, which leads to a more simple life, right? Less choices to make when you go to your closet and figure out what you're going to wear in the morning because you have simplified your closet in some way, and that kind of idea. Which, side note, Lisa and I did a lot of decluttering after we did that episode. I was in my closets. You're going to see pictures.
That's
Anyway,
awesome.
so simplicity is just that. And I was thinking how this can be applied to my time with God. So maybe many years ago, more so than now, I'm a type A personality, and so check boxes are awesome. Click, click,
Yeah.
click, love it. You know,
Yeah.
love to check a box. And so
Yeah.
my time with God was a lot of box checking, and
Mhm.
like, let's see how many things I can fit in this time with God and feel really productive about it. Well, that's not
Yeah.
really the point, right?
Right.
So, not about productivity. And so even our times with God, we can overcomplicate. I've got to get this
Yeah.
many chapters in. Then I want to read this book. Then I want to do my journal. Like, I want to do all these things. And that
Yeah.
just isn't realistic. And
Mhm.
so I feel like it's like a go back to the basics kind of idea, or just simply allowing God to come in and show you, like, what's for today? Do I just need to sit with you? Do I
Yeah.
just need to sit? And that's kind of what I did in my solitude yesterday. Is I was gonna, I mean, I did a lot of journaling, but I'm gonna sit. I'm gonna just
Mhm.
look at the lake and soak it in.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that was a simplifying that fed my spirit,
Yeah.
my mind. And so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
simplicity of schedule also is
Mhm.
just so important. Can definitely be applied to your schedule.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was thinking more along the lines about the getting rid of stuff. And in that book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, if you've read it, you guys have read how John Mark Comer, I'm trying to remember if he went down, I think he first went down to two outfits that he just alternated. And then I think maybe he added a third or something like that.
Wow.
But I know that really, that really made me pause and stop and think about, like, what if I had two outfits only? And I thought, yeah, I could do that, no problem, right? That'd be so easy. And then I looked in my closet and went, oh, actually, how could I do that? I can't get rid of that. And then, but it did really make me think about. It encouraged me to get rid of clothes that I wasn't wearing and not even feel bad about it at all.
Yeah.
Somebody else is going to use those clothes and they're going to
Yeah.
be thankful for them probably, and so that's a good thing. and it's decluttering my life and making it
Mhm.
more simple. And I would think to myself, if he could go to 2 outfits, surely I can go down to 10 tank tops. Like when I was decluttering my tank tops over, I mean, that's just one, I've got t-shirts, I've got sweaters, sweatshirts.
Yeah.
I have less tank tops now. But yeah, it does, it just, gosh, like, if you have two of something, get rid of the one. It just is life
Yeah.
giving, and it might feel hard at first, but once you
Mhm.
kind of get on a roll, it's like, oh, what else can I get rid of? It just feels
Mhm.
good. Feels like a decluttering, not just of your stuff, but of all the areas.
Mhm.
Freedom. It feels like freedom.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
thinking that it's freedom because you're all of these things we've been talking about last week and this week is creating more space. We
Hmm.
want more space for what we truly value and for God, for our family, for those things that we love, the things that are most valuable to us. We need space for them.
Yeah.
If we're going, we don't have space for what we truly love, and that's where we start to fall apart. So
Yeah.
simplicity is a way to create space for what you love the most.
Yeah.
And that's that idea of margin, which I did just have somebody ask me last week, what do you mean by margin? I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, sorry. I thought that was obvious, but no, it's not. So it's
Yeah.
just think of it as space. And so even when you look at
Hmm.
your calendar, like every Monday I look at my calendar and I go, whoa, sometimes I go, whoa, too overscheduled. Is there anything
Yeah.
here that's optional? Could
Yeah.
I toss it to the side or put it to next week? Could I move it?
Yeah.
Which I've
Hmm.
done before, like even an appointment, like it's just
Hmm.
too much this week. I'm going to move
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I recently did that with something I was considering. I wanted to do it. Um, Felt a little bit of people pleasing in me to do it, but it was on top of an already full day of hosting a retreat. And then I was going to try to do
Hmm.
something that night. And I went, wait a minute. Hmm, I don't think I
Yeah.
should do this to myself. And
Yeah.
so I
Not
cut it
kind.
out. It's not that I
Yeah.
didn't want to do it, but it's like
Yeah.
it's not the best thing. So,
Right.
all
Yeah.
right, to the
That's good.
last S. To the
Yeah.
last S, slowing.
Hmm.
Slowing. That's a practice, people. It's nothing that some of us it does not come natural. And I think again, my timing for my retreat, little mini retreat yesterday was perfect because I rarely sit down. And so to sit or to be still was something that, and to move at a slow pace, it can make me feel guilty and it can make me feel slothful, you know?
Mm.
So it took me a while, but when I did start to embrace it yesterday, it was a lovely, lovely feeling. It felt like closing my eyes to just remember it, like God was saying, I've got you right where I want you, and it's okay.
Mm.
You're going to sit here with me. It's going to be lovely, and you don't have to be rushing. I love you right here, right now. And that kind of a feeling.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. So slowing.
Hmm. Yeah. I sent you this Instagram reel recently, but it just keeps flashing in my mind as we talk about slowing. That where it was a woman that like said yes to watching a movie, and she's like, "Yeah, I'll do that." And then she sits for like 2 seconds, and then she grabs the laundry and starts folding it, and then she's like overdoing the dishes, going, "Wait, I can't hear the movie. Will you turn it up?" And she's all over the place. I'm like, "Oh, wow!" To see it.
Uh
I
huh.
do that all the time, but to
I
see it,
know.
it's like, how ridiculous is that? Like, I say, yes, yeah, I'll sit and watch this movie, and then I do 25 other things. But, whew, yeah, a work in progress for
Totally
sure.
cracks me up because it was so me.
Me too, yeah. So I was like, wow, that's relatable. My sister sent it to me, so I'm pretty sure she relates as well. But a place where I've been practicing slowing is not when a movie's on, apparently, but when I'm on my walks. I was just thinking about that today, and um, I mean, the one I mentioned about saying hi to my neighbor and talking more to my neighbor and things like that, that's one way I slow down. But just physically, like slowing my pace, like I'll notice the striving that I'm doing, and I'll just kind of check in with like, why? I mean, even if I don't have a long time for a walk, then I can just walk slower and not be gone as long.
Mhm.
And why? Why am I why am I striving during that time? Why am I rushing? And just to slow down on my walk, and like look up at the sky, look up at the trees, and take it in, like we talked about during the summer, using your senses and things on a walk, worshiping on a walk. But that's
Yeah.
a really good place where I think for a long, long time that never occurred to me that I could walk slower. I mean, that might sound
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous, but it
Mm-hmm.
didn't even occur to me that I could do that. But I can, and it's more enjoyable, and I hear from God better that way.
I think
Yeah.
that's one practice that leads to like if you want to practice slowing and you don't know how, I think of two ways. One, walking at a
Mm-hmm.
slower pace. My daughter leads me to have to walk slower, which is hard for
Mm-hmm.
me. A
Mm-hmm.
dog can be the same way, right? You have to
Yeah.
sometimes, depends if how much energy they have at the moment. But
Right.
and also journaling, the act of journaling. I've heard many
Mhm.
people say to me, I don't like to journal, it's too slow. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's the point.
Yep.
Hello. It's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be
Go back and listen.
hand
I think maybe like our second episode or something was about
writing.
writing. Yeah.
Handwriting
Hmm.
is meant to be slow. It slows you
Yeah.
down. Yeah.
So true. Yeah.
All right. So let's go to some heart checks.
Hmm. Yeah.
So when we're balanced in the area of work, the grace of God is upon us, right? You just feel that. And then the fruits of the Spirit are present when we're
Yeah.
feeling in that perfect flow that, is not always attainable. We have these things present in our life. We have more patience, kindness, peace,
Hmm.
gentleness. Do you see evidence of this in your life, friends? Do you see it? And here's a couple of questions to ponder. Just let your heart maybe journal on these, but let your heart
Yeah.
ponder them. Am I willing to rearrange my life for what my heart most wants? Are you willing to rearrange your life for it? And that's that idea of putting your values equal in alignment with your actions, with your schedule. Does your schedule reflect your values? If not, take a look at that. And then another question, how do I want to live so I can be who I want to be?
Yeah.
How do
Such
I
good
want to live
questions.
so I can be who I want to be? Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Such good questions that I believe will lead to less anxiety in your life
Yeah.
if you really reflect on those. So, as we wrap it up, if you're still kind of in a place of thinking, like, I'm not sure if this applies to me, maybe you feel like your life, maybe you're not, in a place of raising young kids or working full time or something like that. Maybe I don't know if I need to, but you could go back and listen to the symptoms that Michelle read at the beginning. There were like 8 symptoms, I think, that she listed from the book, How Did I Get So Busy? To see like, oh, well, I actually do struggle with some of those. And then these heart check questions that she just read, to think about, like, is that how I'm living, and that will let you know if, maybe this deserves a little attention in your life. So, simple steps. Step 1, take an honest look at your spirit, mind, and schedule, and check in with yourself. Which one of those, spirit, mind, and schedule, which one of those is most cluttered and in need of cleaning up? So maybe you're on the opposite end of the spectrum and you are going, all of them, they all need cleaning up, but just pick one, spirit, mind, and schedule, because really, if you focus on one, it's going to help the others anyway. So
Mhm.
pick one, which one is the most in need of cleaning up? And then which one of John Mark Comer's 4 S's, the silence or solitude, Sabbath, simplicity, or slowing, could you apply to that one area that you chose? So you're just picking one area, spirit, mind, or schedule, and then choose, really thinking, evaluating, how would silence, Sabbath, simplicity, or slowing help kind of heal that area? So that's what we have for you today. We're thankful that you guys were with us. As always, we love it when you share episodes with friends, when you interact with us in our Facebook group or on social media, and join our Facebook group if you haven't yet. It's really easy. Just send us a request. We'll have the link in the show notes, and rating and reviews and all of that stuff is super helpful. And we're just
Mhm.
thankful for you listeners and viewers. We'll see you next
Yeah.
time.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
We are so glad you joined us today, and we hope we've inspired you to take that one simple step for the whole you.
And if you've enjoyed this podcast, would you help us spread the word by passing it on to your friends and family, and also leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Instagram, and those links are in the show notes. And as always, consult your healthcare provider before implementing any major exercise or diet changes. We hope to see you next week. Bye.